Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about negative space. And negative space is really a drawing form, a way of drawing, but it's also a way of looking and seeing the subject that's in front of us. As we're trying to translate a three-dimensional form onto a two-dimensional surface, we have to sometimes trick our brain to let us really see what that form looks like and what it would look like if it was flattened out, rather than really thinking about it as a three-dimensional form. And by doing that, it helps us, by thinking about the shape and relationship, how we can capture it on a two-dimensional surface, it becomes easier for us to draw it and draw it correctly. Our brain likes to think in symbols. It likes to assume it knows what things look like. But in reality, we need to really look and consider our subject for us to understand it. Negative space is going to help us to do that. So one way to create negative space is to work subtractively, which we're going to do today. And the idea is that because negative space concentrates on the area outside of the subject rather than the subject itself, if we work subtractively, we really have to force ourselves to look at those areas that comprise what we're drawing rather than the object itself. So for example, today I'm going to be drawing a chair, and instead of drawing the legs of the chair, the arms of the chair, the seat of the chair, I'm actually going to draw all the holes that I see in between those spaces, the form and shape of the space between the armrest, between the backrest, between the legs. And through that process, we're going to create negative space and create this negative space drawing. Today, the supplies we'll need are newsprint, compressed charcoal, a kneaded eraser, a white plastic eraser, and some extra newsprint to blend with. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover our newsprint in charcoal because we'll be working subtractively. So we're going to use our erasers to draw all the areas the chair isn't occupying. Basically, we're going to draw everything but the chair and therefore get the chair. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover our paper in charcoal. So just a thin layer, don't push too hard. Just let the charcoal kind of touch the newsprint. Work with the charcoal on its side. And now that I have a bit of charcoal on my newsprint, I'm going to blend it. I'm going to take a piece of newsprint and I'm going to make it so it fits my hand, and I'm just going to blend with it. All right, so now I have a nice even layer of charcoal, and I'm going to start drawing my chair by subtracting. I want to draw pretty small because I want the chair to fit within this form, but if it starts to fall off the edges, that's okay. Just go ahead and allow for that to happen. I'm going to start at the upper corner of the back seat. So the back seat of the chair will be here, the arms of the chair, seat of the chair, legs of the chair, etc. But instead of drawing them, I'm going to subtract around them. So if I start to look at this back of the chair, it's not horizontal. Instead, what I see is that the back of the chair is actually curving from the bottom right and going up to the left. Then what I see is that the edge of that chair has like a little right angle. Then it starts to come down vertically. And where the arm rest hits it, it starts to curve and go to the left. Then, and I can actually start to erase out that negative space. I see that the armchair has an armrest that's just a little bit has a difference in space, so it's a little bit higher, and then it starts to curve downward. And I can erase all of this space, all that negative space. So this to me looks like, the edge of a rectangle, and it comes to a point. And the back of the chair, again, is curving. It's not straight. So now let's get to the edge of the armrest and then go inside of the chair. So this edge of the armrest seems to be curving downward, but it's not fully vertical. It's a little bit of an angle, something like that. And then it starts to hit the seat. So I'm just going to erase some of this. Now I want to move into the interior. So this space that makes up the space between the seat, the back of the chair, and the arm of the chair is like a really funky shaped rectangle. So let's figure out what that looks like. If I start here, taking into consideration the width of the armrest, and then it looks like it's curving a little bit. It flattens out. Then it curves again and starts to slope downward. And it hits the armrest at a pretty pointed angle. Then starts to, if I'm following the back of the chair, again, looking at that rectangle, it's a pretty funky shape. It's going to actually curve down. And then the back of this armrest is going to go down, and it's going to curve here too, but in the other direction. So this side is curving this way, this side is curving that way. And now I can erase out that space. If you're trying to get the kneaded eraser to have a point, all you need to do is actually twist it in your hand, and you can actually create a little point for the kneaded eraser. If that starts to flatten too quickly for you before you can really get an edge, that's when you can pull out that Mars plastic eraser and erase out. Careful, the newsprint can be a little bit fragile, so don't erase too hard. Okay, so then the front of the seat is curving, and then it starts to slope back to the right. Maybe just a little bit less quickly than I am drawing it. Something like that. And then what I see is that at some point in that, I actually see the legs sticking out. And so that's that back leg sticking out a little bit this way. So it's kind of creating a very open triangle. Then what I see is that the edge of that leg hits the corner of the seat, and that part of the seat is curved, and then it connects to the other leg, and then that other leg is going down, but again, still at an angle. None of these things feel like they're truly horizontal. Oh, excuse me, not horizontal, vertical. None of these things feel truly vertical. So now I have the seat itself. Let's actually go back and work on the back of the seat here. So what I see is that this arm and the back of the chair aren't aligned. The back of the seat rest, the backrest, starts lower than that arm of the chair. And I'm going to take into account the thickness of the back of the chair, and it starts to curve and attach to the back of the seat. And up here, it starts to curve again down and to the right. And I can't just create a big rectangle here because the armrest is interrupting that form. And so what I see is that the armrest is interrupting and creating a shape in here. It looks something like this, like again, a funky trapezoid, almost like a Y shape, like the letter Y, something like that. Then if I take into consideration the thickness of the armrest, then I see another form that's creating the rest of the back of that hole here, the back of the seat, the edge of the backrest, and then that's being interrupted by the back leg, which I see the leg that's going from here down. And then finally, there's one tiny little area here between that back leg and that edge of that backrest. So let's also create the exterior form of the back of the backrest. I see that that arm is curving outward. This is coming down. It comes to a point, and then the leg is sloping downward. I'm going to erase that negative space. Again, just be careful with your newsprint. It can be fragile. This is just practice, so that's why we're not using really nice paper. It's just to get the feel for it. But just be careful. Kind of hold the edge of the newsprint. Holding the edge of the newsprint helps to not grab it and tear it. Okay, so now we just have to get the shape of in between these two legs. This leg might be sloping. I may have drawn it a little more sloped than it actually is. Maybe it's something like that. So now this leg, if I take into consideration its width, it's coming down this way. And then the armrest actually attaches here and kind of bulges outward. And then slopes up and to the right. And then I can take into consideration the width of that other leg. So something like this. And I can erase this negative space. So really we're backing into the chair. So we're creating the chair by drawing everything outside the chair, not drawing the chair itself. So this is really good practice in looking and trying to understand the forms that you're seeing and drawing those forms. It's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if it ends up looking like wonky and a little bit funky. That's not the purpose of this is not for you to create a perfect drawing. It's to see this kind of shape, and how this form is interrupting it, or that this part curves down and then curves back up, or that the back of the chair is not horizontal, but rather is at an angle. And that is how, as I was mentioning before, we're going to start to translate something that's 3D, and then we're going to start looking at all the spaces around it, and that's going to really help us understand how to capture something that's three-dimensional onto a two-dimensional surface. So we'll be practicing negative space both in the lab and for homework. So look forward to seeing your drawings.